You're listening to the 49 Carats podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Angelina Martin and Stephanie Sanchez.
Welcome to episode 34 of the 49 Carats podcast. We are on the brink of yet another NFC Championship game for the 49ers against the Los Angeles Rams. We're so excited. As usual, I'm Angelina Martin. My better half, Steph Sanchez, is here with me today. And we have a very special guest that we are so excited about on this episode. We're going to break down this NFC Championship game with Rich. Watch the tape, Madrid. If you don't follow him on Twitter, he is at Rich J Madrid, and he is a must follow, whether it's his invaluable insight on football or just owning people and being a lot smarter than them. So we had to have him on the show.
A little less of that these days.
Yeah, good for you, Rich. Growth. We love it, but never change also. If you don't know Rich, he covers the Packers at Acme Packing Co. He's a film room writer for Niners Nation. He does rules analysis at Football Zebras. And he also has a 49ers All-22 account where he does film breakdowns. Just a great follow, great guy in general. Rich, thanks for being here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Steph, I didn't check in with you. I went to Rich first, but I'll circle back to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about this matchup. Feeling lovely.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be a 49ers, playoff, yet another step in the playoffs if there weren't some drama throughout the week, right? And I wanted to start this pod off with the drama that's circulating 49ers Twitter and really like 49ers media in general. If you didn't see, ESPN analyst Mina has made waves this week with her comments about Jimmy Garoppolo. And what made even more waves is former 49ers quarterback Jeff Garcia's response to it. So if you haven't seen, Mina said that Jimmy is the definition of being part of the group project that gets an A while doing none of the work. And of course, that was after their win in Green Bay over the weekend. So Steph, do you want to pull up what Jeff Garcia said really quick? Or okay,
sure
so
do. Yeah.
If you can't see what Jeff Garcia said, or if you haven't seen it yet, basically he said that Mina doesn't get to have an opinion because she's never played quarterback. That's the gist of it. I'm not going to read that entire thing, quite frankly, because it doesn't deserve to be read. But we put right next to it, Rich, your response. You said Mina Kimes wasn't wrong about Jimmy. It shouldn't be this earth-shattering thing to hear someone in the national media finally say it. But whatever. Also, Jeff Garcia sucks. LMFAO. So, Rich, take me through your thoughts on Mina's comments, on Jeff Garcia's comments. Obviously, we can see a little bit of what you think there with your tweet.
Yeah, she's not saying it just based after one performance in one game. I mean, there are things in that game that happen where if Kittle catches that one pass and Jennings doesn't drop the other, then maybe the narrative's a little different. But it's the same story with the guy week after week. You just never know what you're going to get, what he's going to do. And if you're not sitting there watching him drop back to throw and getting a little nervous, then I don't know. Maybe you just really don't see it. He just makes these mistakes, puts this team in a hole more often than not, and somehow finds a way to get out of it. And that's what she's referring to. I'll disagree with her a little bit. He does some of the work. It's just, what did he do the first 58 minutes of the game to put him in that position? And that's fine. They're winning games, and he's not like a terrible quarterback by any means. And a lot of those throws were really good, but he just doesn't sustain it. And we've seen that time after time. And right now it doesn't really matter because they've won X amount of games since being 3-5, and they're playing in another NFC Championship, fifth time in a decade. So there's a lot to be positive about, and there's still stuff that we need clarification and answers on. And she's part of an NFL media group, not really like the big media guys, but some of the other writers for the Ringer, some of these other publications, PFF, that have strong opinions like that they're all kind of in the same group, and they all share the same opinion. I talked to a lot of them, and they have the same opinions about this team. They think it's a great team. They just think Jimmy's the guy that, if in the end, will hold them back. And I can't say I disagree with that.
Yeah, a word that you used a couple times there was fine, which is kind of how I feel about Jimmy. Like, he's fine, you know. Steph, why do you think that her comments evoked such an emotional response from a lot of 49er fans and former 49ers players?
Well, I mean, there's people who are very defensive about Jimmy Garoppolo. So anytime someone goes out and says something negative about him, you have an army of Jimmy stands that will come after you. And I mean, Jeff Garcia in particular, I think some of what he said, I feel like came from, him being a little misogynist a bit and, obviously discrediting her opinion on Jimmy Garoppolo, which were fair comments, as Rich said, just because she hasn't played football. And there's plenty of men, there's plenty of men who talk about football, but you won't have a quarterback or a Jeff Garcia, being angry about that and making a Instagram post about it. So
yeah, I just think, oh, go ahead, Rich.
I forgot what I was going to say.
You sound like me.
I thought,
yeah, go ahead.
If that's the case, like, who wants to listen to a bunch of just ex-football players give their opinions on the sport? Like, so many people that are giving opinions and analysis on it didn't ever play the game or play the game at that level. So
right.
I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much if I had to listen to someone like Jeff Garcia 24 hours a day on TV or on Twitter.
Yeah, I just think it's funny because, like, this is something that we've heard ever since, like, 2019, really, that season. After the NFC Championship game against the Packers, everyone was calling Jimmy Garoppolo a handoff machine because we saw how they won that game. And it wasn't a diss or a knock on Jimmy. Now, I mean, I can see how the way that she phrased it may ruffle a couple feathers, but it's not like she said the best thing he's ever done is get injured so they could have a draft pick, like some people have said in the past. So to me, like, when you're a woman and you are putting takes out there, the response you're going to get is tenfold because people are waiting for you to make a mistake. Really, that's the bottom line. So for me, I completely agree with what you said, Steph. I think if a guy had said that who hadn't played football before, I don't think Jeff Garcia would have even commented on it. So really disappointed to see that. And I mean, we'll see how Jimmy does this weekend. Should we get into our preview of the Rams game?
Let's do it.
All right.
So the 49ers have beat the Rams 6 times in a row now. Why do you think the 49ers, and in particular this Kyle Shanahan-led 49ers, have been so dominant against the Rams?
I think it really goes back to how much Kyle Shanahan knows his former coach's tendencies. You see it against the Packers. You see it against the Rams. It finally paid off against the who does Dan Quinn coach for? The Cowboys. He figured out his scheme. They didn't play well versus Dan Quinn's Falcons in 2019 because some of the things that Quinn did in that game were just changing up what he normally does with the Cowboys against the 49ers in the wild card. He didn't do that because Shanahan knew through previous experience what Quinn liked to do. So, and he kept Quinn in his base defense pretty much almost the whole game. With the Rams, you get similar offenses. Where they diverge now is how they run their personnel groupings with like 11 personnel and 21 personnel. Rams like a little more pass heavy, 3 receivers. They finally got Matt Stafford. They hardly run play action anymore. And then that's who they are. But Shanahan knows that. He knows that in certain areas and certain downs and certain situations, they're going to run this play or that play because they all came from the same playbook. So he knows how to scheme against it. He knows how to scheme against Raheem Morris. I think Raheem Morris was on staff with him somewhere, so he has familiarity with what he likes to do. They just know, like, you just stay away from Donald and you can get to the edges on the Rams defense through certain run schemes, and that's what they're going to do, and they're going to keep hammering it until they do it. Shanahan knows his coach's tendencies, his previous coach's tendencies, like the back of his hand. He probably knows them better than those coaches do. So I think that's a huge advantage in that situation. And you see it pay off nearly every time. I mean, he's beaten LaFleur 3 times now, twice in the playoffs. One game was against, with Nick Mullins in a COVID year, and then one was a really close week 3 game, which they easily could have won after being in a hole 17-0. So
Yeah.
It really speaks to the kind of coach that Shanahan is and what he knows to expect from his former coaches. I fully expect they're going to be ready and have counters for what the Rams try to do in the Week 18 game, and they're going to have counters off of their counters. So it'll be interesting to see the chess match that goes on, but ultimately I think they're going to be ready.
It really worked out for Kyle Shanahan that a lot of the coaches that he has coached with are in the NFC, right? Got lucky with that one. So 21 teams have played another team 3 times in the same NFL season, and a sweep has happened 67% of those times. So that's pretty good odds. I mean, what's it going to take to make it 7 in a row? Do you think they're going to come out, swinging like they did back in November, I believe it was, during that first matchup? Or do you think it's going to be more like that Week 18 matchup where it came down to the wire?
Probably closer to Week 18. It is the playoffs, and you're getting the best teams in the playoffs now, and it's not always going to be like a random, Week 11 game or whatever, where anything can happen. Right now, at this point of the season, the teams left are only running plays that they're comfortable with, that they know they can execute against other teams. And you might see a wrinkle or two here and there, like we did in the Packers game with Trent Williams lead blocking on one of their staple run plays. But I don't really think they're going to be introducing a whole new set of variables for McVay to have to counter. I think they're just going to stick to what they do best, because there really isn't a lot of time to get familiar with a lot of maybe new wrinkles or designs that they might come up with.
Yeah. Really quick, they did ask Sean McVay yesterday if Kyle Shanahan was in his head, and of course he said no. Who's going to answer yes to that question? But do you guys believe his answer no, or do you think that Kyle and the Niners are in his head a little bit? I mean, it's been 6 games in a row.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit. I mean, it's been 6 games that he hasn't won, so that's always going to be in the back of your mind. Like, okay, when am I finally going to beat this guy? Like, you didn't. These guys are human too. They're not robots going through the motions. Yeah. He probably thinks about it as much as Jim Harbaugh thought about trying to beat the Seahawks every year. It's going to be in their mind. It's something they need to do, and they need to come out of LA with a win, so McVay can put that behind him and say they did it in probably the most important game so far. But to say that he's not in his head, I mean, yeah, sure, he's going to say no, but he's definitely thinking about it, because it probably does weigh on him, like it weighs on a lot of other teams. It looks like we're going to see a Bills-Chiefs scenario where the Bills never beat the Chiefs. That's going to weigh on those coaches too. Like they need to get over that hump, and that's what McVay needs to do in this situation. Just don't think he will right now.
Yeah.
What about you, Steph? It's the same guy who ran onto the field when he went up, was it 17-0 in the first half?
So excited.
You want to tell me that Kyle Shanahan isn't in his head? Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It had to be embarrassing, that loss on in that Monday night game, and then to go up 17-0, in Week 18. I mean, I'm sure he was juiced about it, and because he knows how important it is. This is a rivalry that's been, in my mind, a bigger rivalry since the two teams have been in the NFC West than the Seahawks, because they've always, aside from them being in St. Louis, they've always been in the same state, played twice a year. They played in an NFC Championship a long time ago. There's history there. There's more history there with these two teams than probably the 40, at least as much as with the Packers and the Cowboys that the 49ers have. So it more so than the Seahawks. So yeah, this is definitely a big thing for McVay and that franchise.
Yeah. Going back to the Packers game last week, the defense struggled a bit in that first drive, in particular with Devontae Adams, but after that, they really clamped down on him. Now they have Cooper Kupp on task this week, and some people seem to think that K'Waun Williams is not up for that challenge, particularly after his injury. Some people think he doesn't look 100%. I'm going to throw up this conversation here that Dieter seemed to think that K'Waun Williams should at least be considered to be benched for Dante Johnson, which Dante Johnson has, he's stepped up in recent weeks. But I don't know if I agree with this. Obviously, Dante Whitner does not agree with this. I want to get your thoughts on this and how they can stop Cooper Kupp coming into this game.
Dante Johnson has been playing very well since he's getting more playing time. It's not like he's been a liability. I mean, he put the clamps on Devontae Adams pretty well last week, and some of that may have been like the field conditions and the weather, but and Rodgers' generally poor execution on some plays, but he still did it. I mean, Dante Johnson anyways played in that Week 18 game. He ended up finishing the game with safety or something, and another, Denard came in as like the nickel. So he's more than capable of doing it, and he's a guy that's been around the scheme for a while. He knows the playbook, and he knows what to do, and he shouldn't be considered a liability by any means because he's played well lately. So, but as far as K1 Williams, I mean, he's had his ups and downs. He gave up the big pass to Adams last week, but it really looked like he struggled to get his footing on that turf, and that really is indicative more so of the turf than it is the player, because to have to backpedal on like a snowy, frosty turf is different than running forward. So
yeah,
he did give up that pass play, but it didn't matter. I mean, he didn't give up anything else in that game. And from what I remember, he played pretty well against the Cowboys and the Rams the second time. He did have a really bad pass interference penalty in that Monday night game against Kupp, but Kupp's going to, it's like Adams. He's going to get his anyways, whether he's in the slot or out wide. I don't think K1 Williams should be viewed as what Dieter's saying. I don't agree with that at all. I think he's fine. And, if it were me, though, I'd probably move Jimmy Ward into the slot to cover Kupp if he's there sometimes. And that's what they've done in the past anyways. They're going to move Tart, Ward, and Williams around to play certain guys in certain situations. So it's not like he's going to be left alone against Kupp the entire game.
Yeah. The key is to trust D'Amico, right? That's our motto. So we've seen Cam Akers, slowly getting more and more involved in the game since coming back from injury. How big of a part do you think he's going to play in the Rams passing game this weekend?
Sorry, it cut out. What was the first part of the question?
Cam Akers has seen more and more involvement as the weeks go by since coming back from injury. So how do you think he's going to play into the passing game this weekend?
Probably as much as he did in the last game. He's still, I mean, he hasn't played in, the entire season. I think he missed all training camp too with the injury, right? So probably as much as he did against the Bucs. And they didn't really, I mean, they broke off a few big runs in that game, but not a lot. I mean, they're not a team that's going to really run the ball to the edges right now with McVay. For some reason, he's just gone away from it. And in the passing game, they'll do a lot of stuff that the 49ers do, but it's just not like that much. Well. Or as well. But we might see some plays where Akers is out wide and Kupp is in the backfield. Like the Rams like to do that kind of stuff. And it's worked for them, and they've run Kupp out of the backfield as the running back, and he got wide open in Indianapolis and scored a touchdown on that play that they ran. So they'll probably move him around, get him involved in the passing game, especially when they go empty, 3-by-2 that McVay likes to do in third down. The issue with that is if you watch enough of their tape, you can kind of what they're going to do. And it confirmed it when they did the mic'd up for the Buccaneers. You could hear the DB coach for the Buccaneers say every time they get in this formation, you're getting verticals from X, Y, or Z here. And so it is pretty predictable. So, there's certain things that tip it off. And like I said, it's because they're just not going to change up much really what they do. And no team is right now, but Akers is probably going to be used probably just as much as he was the last couple of weeks, not too heavily, but he'll be a factor maybe. Not so much running the ball though, I don't think, but it'll be something to watch for, because they might come out with some new little wrinkle that they use him for as he gets healthier, but we'll see. I
think both offenses are going to be pretty crafty this weekend. I mean, we saw Debo trick play last time they played that ended in a touchdown pass. So I hope we see more fun stuff like that.
I just don't think they'll be able to run the ball that well. The 49ers were kind of playing, or not playing with the Packers, but feeling them out on that first drive. Just to kind of see what they were going to do with some of their personnel groups and formations. And then once the second drive started for D'Amico, he was like, okay, that's it. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's as much of a wild card there with the Rams. I think you know what you're getting. And they let the Rams march right down the field the first drive of that week 18 game, but it ended up coming out of there with, I think, just a field goal. And sometimes it takes them, a little bit of time to feel out what they're doing and to be sure that they're going to get what they thought they were going to get. So D'Amico will be ready. Nothing will be a surprise to him, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think you're up, Ange.
No, I just asked about Cam Akers.
Yeah, you did ask the Cam. Okay. So the special teams are coming off a great game, but of course you can always say, well, the Packers is because the Packers had a worse special teams unit. The Rams have a number 4 special teams unit in DVOA compared to the 49ers 24th. Do you think that the special teams unit can sustain some of that momentum that they kind of got, some confidence in that Packers game to this game?
Oh, absolutely. It looks like they may have cleaned up some of their issues, so I think they'll be fine there. Obviously, they did what they did against the Packers special teams because in the special teams film room during the week, they probably saw a few things that they thought they could take advantage of. And that's what you want to see, right? You want to see them put in the work to know what the opposition teams are going to do. And that's exactly what they did. They know that guy for the Packers likes to probably punch a certain way when he drops back to block. And that's what they did. Key, I think, chopped the arms. That wasn't Key. It was I forget who sprung Jimmy Ward's rush into the field goal block, but what they probably saw was the guy likes to set a certain way, and so they chopped his arms when he set that way, and Ward had a free run through the gap there to block the field goal. And it was the same thing on the punt block. You see guys set a certain way, or how he steps back, or maybe he's too upright, and you can take advantage of that. Those are the little things in the film room that they notice, and that's exactly what they did against the Packers. They might not notice it as much against the Rams, who have a better unit, but if they know themselves what they have to clean up, then it'll be cleaned up. I mean, we can only think back on some of the games for the 49ers where the special teams was like really that bad. And I think that's what drives some of those rankings. You never climb out of it because of how many times in a game you get special team snaps. It's just not a lot. So
yeah.
The plays that you do get, you have to not play it safe, but you have to secure the ball. You have to make the tackle and all that cliche stuff, right? So, and they've been doing that in the playoffs. I don't think there's too much of an issue with that, and there probably won't be in this game. It'll be indoors. It's on turf, so I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, and I think maybe Steph could help me out with this, but I think Jimmy Ward said after the game that it was Jordan Willis again that was able to help him out. Okay, yeah. Help him out and block that kick.
And then he blocked the punt.
Yes,
he had a Packers center was. They knew the Packers center was too upright, and that's the Packers really hurt themselves on special teams because they cut a bunch of guys toward the end of the season and then into the bye week that were on their special teams, and then they ended up having to fill them in with practice squad players, and so that was a baffling decision from the start. I mean, they came
back to bite them.
It did, and then the defensive line, they cut a couple guys off the defensive line before the playoff game, and they went into that game with 5 defensive linemen. Just another truly baffling decision. So combined with probably what the 49ers saw on tape and practice throughout the week, it was ripe for a disaster for the Packers in that situation.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a little harder for them to find things wrong with the Rams. They're number 4 in DVOA on special teams, whereas the Packers, I believe, were number 31. So a bit of a jump there.
But what they'll see is, okay, we have to cover these lanes and make sure that we have everything tightened up, otherwise maybe you don't want to see it. Maybe the Rams do spring a punt return for a touchdown or a kick return or something. So they're going to spend a lot of the time refining their technique and their basically their kickoff structure and things like that. So it should be fine. Who knows what will happen to Hightower after this season, but
yeah,
I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. Praying for no successful fake punts. Cool. So
Yeah.
we saw last weekend that the Packers were able to pressure Garoppolo a lot. And in his last 4 games, he's had 10 turnover-worthy plays and only 2 big-time throws. So knowing what we know about the Rams, how do you think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to do this weekend? Do you think he's going to bounce back, have a better game against the Rams? I mean, it's going to be 71 degrees in Los Angeles this weekend compared to 1 degree at Lambeau. So how do you think Jimmy's going to do this weekend?
I think he'll be fine. I think he's primed for at least a bounce back of some type, a couple touchdown passes. Maybe you get the pick in there. Who knows? I think they'll generally be a little more careful with the ball as they get closer to clinching a Super Bowl spot. Kind of like now they're not going to let him throw just 8 times. They're going to need to throw in this game, I think. Especially if last week is any indication that of what the Rams can do to a decent defense. I don't think anyone in the playoffs left is as good as the 49ers defense, but you let Stafford start airing it out and he gets time, and he'll pick some people apart. I mean, he did in the Week 18 game until he made those couple of mistakes, but they'll do what they always do. They'll scheme up the throws for Jimmy and he'll make them. I have no doubt about that. He just typically tends to play better against some of these divisional opponents like the Rams. He's had some pretty good games against them, so I think that'll continue, and I think he'll probably bounce back. Now, I think Shanahan said yesterday the shoulder injury came off the report, so it doesn't look like that'll affect him. Some of the practice tape from yesterday, he looked fine throwing, so I don't think there's going to be an issue there. It's just you just have to worry about the hand and taking a shot to the hand.
Yeah.
And he threw fine in that Week 18 game. So the pick that he had was the bad one to Kittle was decision, or it was. He threw too late. It wasn't like affected by the hand or anything. So he'll be fine, I think.
Yeah, that was what worried me about that Week 18 game, was that in the first half, the Rams seemed to really stop the run for the 49ers. And I was like, oh my God, this is just going to be a passing competition now. And we have Jimmy Garoppolo going up against Matthew Stafford. But honestly, I think Matthew Stafford might be just as turnover prone as Jimmy G. And we saw that was a huge factor in that game. So how many picks do you think there are going to be this weekend?
Probably at least one each. Somebody's going to make a huge turnover like that for the Rams or the 49ers. I think there'll be one each at least. These games always have it. And Stafford is when they get into a situation like they were last time, they're going to let him be a gunslinger, and those guys make those bad decisions sometimes. So the trade-off was getting Matt Stafford's 42 or 40 touchdown passes this year that he had or whatever. So that's what you can live with.
Right. You have someone that throws picks, but if they're also throwing touchdowns, it definitely makes up for it. So you want to shoot your cue stuff. Hi.
Hello.
We got Rich's daughter in the chat.
Yeah, so going back to Matthew Stafford, I mean, he is aggressive, so sometimes he does throw those interceptions, but when he's blitzed, he's able to take advantage of that in most cases, and that definitely was a case against the Bucs and the Cardinals. But the 49ers are a little different because they actually have one of the lowest blitz rates, and they're still able to produce pressure. The 49ers have a 19.8 blitz rate compared to Tampa Bay and Arizona, which were 2 and 3 respectively. So how do you think facing the 49ers will be different for Matthew Stafford?
Look a lot like the last 2 games, right? Because what D'Amico, like you said, he's not a blitz heavy guy. Robert Saleh wasn't a blitz heavy guy, and what they do is they use it sparingly in certain situations. So they did it, against the Rams and Cowboys in recent weeks. Just in very key situations, you're not going to get like every third down. You're not going to see a blitz from D'Amico. And their third downs, they mostly like to play cover 6. And force quarterbacks to throw downfield and make plays. I got a giggler here.
It's okay. We're gigglers too.
against the Packers, and the Cowboys, you get a couple of just well-timed blitzes in the right situation, and that's all the difference. And that's probably what it's going to be this time. You sit back and you make Stafford throw against 7 or 8 guys in the back or downfield. So, and he can't do that as well. When you blitz him, like the Ravens did this, they blitzed him early, and he hit almost every throw on the blitz, and they stopped blitzing. That was it. And then that game went into a real tight situation here. What are you doing? Come on.
It's okay. My cat will probably hop up here in a second. And to be like, the 49ers don't blitz often, but when they do, it is actually terrifying. Like during that Cowboys games, even the announcers were like juiced. They're like, here comes the blitz. Like it was a freaking tsunami or something. I love it. So the fact that they do it so rarely, I think makes it all the more exciting because, I mean, you have the defensive line, then you have Warner coming out. It's just, I wouldn't want to be on the other side of it. But Rich, I'm sorry we keep pulling up your receipts, but we're going to pull up one more receipt. You said you have never, they're good receipts. You said you've never felt so sure, so confident in a 49ers victory. So what gives you that confidence? Like break it down for us.
It's just the familiarity of beating a team that you beat for the last 6 games. It's the Shanahan factor. It's the running game. It's the defense. It's pretty much everything and everybody in that organization knowing what's at stake here. And I think they can be a little more confident that they're going to come in or come down there and basically know it's going to be a home game for the away team. The way it looks like ticket sales are going. And,
yeah,
you just have a level of familiarity with an opponent that you've put one over on 6 times, even in a down year like 2020. So, it's hard to explain the Shanahan factor in it, but you can see it every time they play. It's there. So I think McVay gets nervous in certain situations. He did this against the Bucs too. As soon as they were up 20-3, they started running the ball and not getting anywhere with it. And that's when Tom Brady came back. I mean,
yeah,
it's McVay and LaFleur, I think, are the 2 most conservative coaches off that tree right now. And they just kind of curl up and go into trying not to lose mode instead of trying to win mode. So I don't think that's something that's McVay's easily going to get over at any point until he like reassesses things in the off season. But these coaches all like to do the same things sometimes in certain situations. And for McVay, it's when you have a lead, you try to just grind the clock out. But when you don't have a running game like the 49ers and you're trying to run with 3 wide receivers on the field, you're not going to really grind it out that way. So I think that matters. And if if McVay gets even a 10-0 lead or another 17-3 lead, he's going to do the same thing. He's going to try to grind it out. He's not going to try to go for the kill shot and try to get people hurt because he's thinking about that. And that'll be ripe for another situation where the 49ers have a chance to come back if it gets to that point. Now, I don't think it will. I think it'll probably stay close the whole game, but you can see the Rams, like they get emotional, they get pissed off, they get tired when they start getting beat. And you could see it in Jalen Ramsey's face when Mike Evans beat him for that touchdown. Like he just threw up his hands in disgust and was like pissed, yelling at people. And they were yelling at people on the sidelines in the Monday night game. They were doing it last game. It's just, they're just like I said there. They're just. I didn't say it there. I think I told SoCali Steph that a team full of stars like that just, they're good, but they're just. Maybe that was it. They just get overly emotional. I think Donald's prone to like ripping his helmet off and throwing it on the field like he does a lot. I mean,
right.
They're great players, but you also have to deal with those egos.
Mm-hmm. I think they're going to be extra emotional this weekend because, I mean, we saw after week 18, like they were just flabbergasted, pissed off at their own fan. Like they were so angry that stadium was filled with 49ers fans. And I mean, we've been seeing the ticket reports all week. Ticketmaster, I believe, came out and said that they're estimating 65% of SoFi will be cheering for the 49ers on Sunday. StubHub said today that the 49ers Rams game is on track to be the #1 best-selling playoff game in the site's history. So it's going to be loud. There's going to be a shit ton of 49ers fans, and I think they're going to be pissed off from the get-go. So I think, I think you're exactly right.
There's probably a lot of converted 49er fans in SoCal right now because the fans there were, and I lived there when this happened, and I lived in Anaheim because I used to play in Anaheim at where the Angels play. People were pissed when they left and went back to St. Louis. People just stopped caring about the NFL. I mean, and then the Raiders left, and then everybody put their energy into like USC, and that's when, USC started to really take off then, and people just didn't care about the Rams. When they came back, you could see it. Nobody cared. It looked like, at least when the 49ers came down to the Coliseum in 16, 17, whatever, and 18, it looked like the way it does now, just a 49ers home game, because I think a lot of people converted and a lot of people just stopped caring. I mean, who wants to, when you live in SoCal, and it was the same thing with the Chargers, when you live down there and it's 85 degrees on an October afternoon on a Sunday, who wants to go to a football game when they can go to a beach and not watch a terrible team? So
yeah. And it's really sad because really, like you mentioned, the Raiders, they don't have home games for the most part. Like they are playing in Vegas where everyone wants to go for the weekend to watch their team play against the Raiders. Right. So it's kind of the same thing. I mean, everyone in Cali wants to go watch the Niners. So it's really interesting. Before we let you go, Rich, do you have a prediction for the game? A score prediction, any kind of prediction? Doesn't have to be a score prediction. We like to throw out like random things we think are going to happen.
I like Garoppolo to throw a couple of touchdown passes, and I think they probably get out of there with at least 28 points, 28-20. I'll say probably. Nice. I think the defense holds. I think Garoppolo bounces back, and I think they make their seventh or eighth Super Bowl. I can't remember. Eighth. They've won 5 and then lost 2, so this will be number 8.
Yes. Crazy.
Yeah. God, so nuts. And I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to get in there. So.
All right. My prediction is 24-17 Niners, and Juwan Jennings is going to go off again, like he did in Week 18. So that's my prediction. You have a predict, Steph?
I'm going to say 42-31.
Jesus
but listen. So I was trying to pull up a tweet that I saw earlier this week. That's why I had my head down. I couldn't find the tweet, but basically it said that Kyle Shanahan has averaged like over 40 points in both of the NFC Championship games that he has coached for as when he was with the Falcons as offensive coordinator and against the Packers as well. And I mean, we don't have Mostert this time, but I'm pretty confident he'll get in his bag. He'll throw some things out there that, the Rams haven't seen before, and maybe he hasn't done this season before. And I feel good about the win.
Backing up her crazy prediction with facts. I love it. We'll roll with that one. I want that score. Rich, as always, we thank you for coming on. You didn't have to take the time. It's actually morning when we're recording this, so we appreciate it.
I love doing this stuff.
Yeah, and for anyone watching or listening, if you don't follow Rich, go follow him. It's at Rich J Madrid. If you're watching, it's right there by his picture. And of course, you can find the 49 Carats podcast on all streaming platforms, youtube.com/Stragasaurus and at 49K Pod on Twitter. So hoping for good things this weekend. We will see you after it's all said and done, no matter what happens. Thanks for listening.